are in listen-only mode.
Well, good afternoon or good evening, everybody. My name is Peter Niger. I'm the Internal Operations Manager for Students for Liberty. Welcome back to the welcome to the first edition of the spring semester 2011 Students for Liberty e-Leadership Series. We're honored today to have Issac Morehouse deliver a talk on how to get an internship for Liberty. Very important subject, especially with the internship season coming up here in DC and across the country. Well, I'm going to take a moment real quick to introduce Students for Liberty and the e-Leadership program to you guys, if any of you are unfamiliar with it. Now, Students for Liberty is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is run for students and by students dedicated to liberty. We were formed about 2 years ago to serve a previously unfilled niche in our universities by connecting liberty-friendly students with other students, faculty, organizations, and resources to help them advance their ideas on campus. The resources we offer include free books for student groups, a speakers network, protest grants, handbooks on running student organizations, tabling kits, leadership training, an academic journal for liberty and society, and of course our conferences. Now this year we're thrilled to host our 4th annual Students for Liberty International Conference next month, February 18th through 20th at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. This conference will feature a live taping of the John Stossel Show and a large variety of sessions from the top liberty organizations in the world on the ideas of liberty, public policy, career mentoring, activism, and leadership training. Topics will range a wide spectrum of disciplines, and sessions are available for both beginners and those more advanced in the ideas of liberty. You'll have an opportunity to meet hundreds of like-minded students from all over the world and network with representatives of the most respected liberty organizations across the country. As of right now, we have about 350 people registered for the conference from 25 different countries, so I hope you don't miss out and can come and join us up here in DC next month. Information will be sent to you in a follow-up email after the webinar with more details. Now, the e-Leadership program is our way of giving you access to the ideas and mentorship in liberty year-round from wherever you are. We hold webinars each week to put you in touch with the top mentors and scholars for liberty in the country, and we have a full list available at our website, studentsforliberty.org. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker this evening. Issac Morehouse is an Educational Programs Director for the Institute for Humane Studies. Issac previously worked for the Mackinac Center of Public Policy in Michigan, where he created and directed the Students for a Free Economy. Morehouse's nonprofit work also includes co-founding an organization that trains students for humanitarian trips overseas and serving as the president of the Kalamazoo County Taxpayers Association. He holds a master's degree in economics from the University of Detroit Mercy and received his bachelor's degree in political science from Western Michigan University. Just to note, there will be 15 minutes of questions and answers at the end of the webinar. Feel free to type in any questions you have in the question box, and we'll have those read off at the end of the webinar. And just so you know, there'll be a follow-up email afterwards with some more information, as well as some questions about the webinar so we can improve our program. Without further ado, I present Issac Morehouse.
Thank you, Peter, for that lovely introduction. Welcome, everybody. This truly is a group of liber nerds, I can tell, because you guys are tuning into a webinar on getting an internship, and there's a particular sporting event tonight, something about the, I don't know, college football championship game. No big deal. Only SFL would schedule a webinar at the same time. Must not have been a sports fan that scheduled that. But
Go Ducks.
my hope is to, my hope is to get done in a pretty short order here. And hey, you know, I've got my DVR pause, and we can at least catch the latter half of the game. I was talking to a coworker about, you know, I'm doing a webinar on getting an internship for Liberty. And he's like, well, what are you going to say? He's like, it doesn't seem like there could be that much to say. And I said, well, you know, really, I could give the short version, which is don't be an idiot, learn to be a good writer, work really hard, and don't pester people with questions after you've filled out an application. Otherwise, everything else is self-explanatory. But I will go into a little bit more depth just in case you guys have a few more questions or there's anything else. So let's jump right in. First, a couple of quick preliminary things. I want to talk about thinking about what you're really interested in and what are your goals before you even go out and apply for any internships. This is pretty basic, and it seems like something you should be doing all the time anyway, but it's kind of often assumed, especially if you're hanging around with a bunch of, you know, people at an SFL conference or something. Hey, let's, you know, get an internship this summer. You're going to go intern for Cato? Are you going to intern for somewhere this summer in Advanced Liberty? It's kind of like the obvious next step, but maybe it's not so obvious. I think it's well worthwhile to think about, why do you actually want an internship? What are you hoping to accomplish? And second, what are your career goals? If you intend to be an engineer, that's great. We need, more engineers. That's absolutely wonderful. Engineers who value liberty. But spending a summer interning at Cato may not be the best use of your time in terms of advancing your career, etc. Now, maybe you may enjoy it, and that's a good diverse interest. But it's something to think about and to think pretty carefully about, I think. So the worst reason you can go and get an internship is because you want to build your resume. Oh, well, it just looks great on a resume to say that I interned at, some nonprofit somewhere. It's going to be good for, grad school applications, etc. That's a terrible reason. The best reason, the ideal reason to get an internship for Liberty is because you are truly passionate about the organization for which you hope to intern. You're truly passionate about their mission. You really feel like you can contribute to it during your internship, but also in the long term, if that were to be a place that you worked eventually. Passion for the organization and their mission is the #1 thing. And when you're reading internship applications, you can tell who's doing it to pad their resume and who's doing it because they're ready to sleep in their car for the things that your organization stands for. And I think that kind of passion comes through, and that's a tremendous benefit to you in your application, but also that's really what it should be about. Because let's face it, this is not about making a bunch of money. When you intern, you're giving up an opportunity to do other things that are more lucrative. It has a high opportunity cost, as the economists among us would say. And again, think about your future career goals. It's not like this is going to lock you into a path that you'll never be able to break out of, but you do want to think 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, where do I want to be? And each summer while you're in college, undergrad or grad school, those are important summers. If you're not taking classes, it's an important time to think about what's the best use I could be making of this, both for personal fulfillment and for building towards where you want to be in the future. So if it's really, I really want to be a policy analyst, then yes, go at it. Go after a Cato internship, AEI or something where you're doing policy. If it's, I'm not really sure, I want to kind of feel things out, maybe you test out a couple different things over different summers. So be thinking long term. Most people are going to be undecided about that, and that's okay. But you want to at least get the wheels turning and be thinking about how your summer might help get you where you want to be eventually. Okay, so why do an internship? What are the benefits? I think work experience is a benefit. Learning about the Liberty Movement, getting good recommendations from people for whom you intern, for future jobs or graduate school scholarships, things like that. Making connections, what's sometimes called networking, which has sort of a cheesy connotation sometimes, but still very valuable. Actually, I better not say too much about networking being cheesy because I think one of my IHS colleagues did a webinar on networking. So yes, connections, networking is wonderful. Learning about libertarian ideas. Just briefly touching on each of these. The work experience and connections are probably realistically, and mostly connections, the most valuable things you're going to get out of this. Well, learning about the Liberty Movement as well, but I'd sort of tie that in with connections. Learning about libertarian ideas, yes, that will happen at a good liberty-based internship, but a lot less than other things you could be doing. It's not really about going to have a big pat ourselves in the back and sit around and talk about Adam Smith time. Although when that happens, it's wonderful. I mean, I love that myself. I think the choir needs to be preached to sometimes, and we need to have a good time discussing ideas. But I think seminars and reading groups and just self-study, things that you can do, you'll get more of that learning about the ideas than you will in an internship. So that's not really what an internship's about. It's not necessarily an educational thing in terms of ideas. What it is about is getting a grasp on the Liberty Movement, what kind of organizations are out there, what are their goals, are they effective, what are they doing, what are the people who play in this space and who make it a career to try to advance liberty. It's about networking with those people, meeting them, finding out what it is that you like, where you might see yourself fitting, meeting and running into people at organizations, whether it's the place that you intern or another place you might run into that, hey, I might want to work there in the future. I might want to start an organization like that. That's, I think, a real tremendous amount of value. There's a lot of self-discovery that goes on and discovery of and awareness of this broader libertarian movement. Sometimes when you're at school, especially if you're at well, pretty much any college, you're besides maybe Hillsdale or Grove City or Northwood or a few others, you are pretty isolated, and you can feel like there's not that many people out there who, read Atlas Shrugged and got all excited about liberty. You go to an SFL event and you say, wow, there are actually a lot of students like this. But what you may not realize is there is an entire, sector of the nonprofit economy like this. There's an entire movement. It's sort of a strange, sometimes creepy-sounding term, but I don't mean it in that way. I genuinely mean just a loosely affiliated, sometimes overlapping group or set of people and organizations that have a full-time career advancing the ideas of liberty in some sense or another. And getting to know that and becoming aware of that is incredibly valuable for you. When it comes down to getting jobs, 9 times out of 10, the people who get hired at libertarian or liberty-advancing organizations are people who already have some connection within that sphere with those people at those organizations, and many of those connections start at an internship. Okay, moving on a little bit here. Types of internships. Look, there's a lot of different things that you can do for liberty-advancing organizations. One that most people think of right away is policy research. So sort of the classic case is, well, I want to intern for liberty, so I guess that means I will be somebody's research slave at Cato. I say research slave partially jokingly, but I'll be digging up data for a scholar and helping them to produce studies and op-eds and things. And that is true. There are internships like that, and those are some excellent internships. But there are also several other types that you may not think as much about. Almost every one of these organizations, think tanks in particular, but other educational organizations as well, like IHS, like FEE, do marketing of all of their programs, marketing of their studies and their scholars, communications with the media. Oftentimes, people don't seek out internships in those areas because they simply don't know about them. So that's something else to think about. Journalism and writing. IHS has journalism internships, which I'll talk about in a little bit. There are some other places, some at least free-ish leaning publications that have journalism internships. Those are definitely harder, and they require a higher level of writing skill, obviously, and writing experience sometimes, but that's something that you really should try to go for if journalism or writing of any type professionally is something you want to do in the future. Getting that experience is crucial. Web and new media, this is a growing area, even though I kind of don't like the word new media. The phrase seems to just mean everything that old people don't understand, but regardless, there's an expanding list of opportunities here for internships and jobs in most organizations. And if you have skills, if you have web, design skills, sort of technical skills, a lot of skills with social media or search engine optimization, that's stuff that you can really bring in. And even if the internship is not advertised as that, if you get to the interview phase or in the application, you can really play that up and say, I can do this, and that's something that's very attractive. Legislative campaign politics, I think that one is fairly self-explanatory for a lot of people. I've been involved in that world a little bit in the past. I'm not so much now. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think that there are better internships you can get where you'll get better experience. But, if you want to know more about campaign, political type internships, I may not be the best person to ask, but I can probably find the person who is. And then finally, administration program management. And I'm going to add down to this bottom one, which is not there now, development, which means fundraising. So there actually are a lot of opportunities in organizations for just basic stuff, phone answering, basic administration, doing a lot of the grunt work that goes into running programs like seminars and things, and development, fundraising, just a lot of the work that goes into that. And that's something, again, that not very many people pursue. So you want to think about the different types that are out there and what type of experience, not just what you think you'd like and be good at, but what type of experience might be beneficial for you to get. So for example, if you're saying, I think I want to be a policy wonk someday, but I'm sort of a little bit drawn to marketing as well, I just don't know how much. An internship is a great way to test out that area that you're slightly less interested in, but you're not sure how interested you are. Test it out. Do an internship, and by the end of the summer, if you figured out that you don't want to do that, that's a huge plus that you figured that out before you went and got a job there, or if you figured out that that really is your passion. So think about the type of internship. Okay, other considerations. Small versus large organizations. This is increasingly something to think about. There are obviously some large, well-known organizations in the Liberty Movement, Reason Magazine, the Reason Foundation, the Atlas Foundation, IHS, FEE, Cato. There's several places that are sort of large, big marquee places, and almost everybody says that's where they want to intern. And they like it because it's big and they're powerful players, they're on the scene, they're being really effective, they're getting out there. That's true, and that's great. But what you might want to think about is some of the smaller organizations that are lesser known. In particular, I'm a huge fan of the state-based think tanks that every state has at least one. Some states have more than one, and I'll talk about finding where those are and getting more info on that later. But also in DC, there are a lot of smaller organizations, and there are more niche organizations. There are organizations that only do energy policy. There are organizations that only do education policy, etc. And they're smaller shops, but the benefit to having an internship there, you tend to get more substantive work. You tend to get pretty solid work experience. And at the state-based think tanks, for example, it's not uncommon at all for interns to get op-eds published, to be working on studies that get published, to have their name on them sometimes, to be doing a whole host of things just because the needs are greater and you're really a bigger fish in a smaller pond. And that's a really good way to get true hands-on experience and make a name for yourself sometimes. But some of the benefits to large organizations are most of them are in DC. There's more happy hours and networking and socializing and meeting other people. There's events going on, a lot of excitement in the air if you're into that kind of thing. Some people just like to sit all alone by themselves in the basement, like I'm doing right now on this webinar. It's very lonely down here. I was hoping you guys would be able to see me because I have all these great libertarian books behind me, and it makes it look like I've read them all. It makes me look really smart, but anyway. Where was I? Off track. Oh, okay, so large versus small organizations. So think about those types of things. If you know that, being up in Midland, Michigan at the Mackinac Center, you're going to just feel too lonely because all your buddies are down in D.C., and that's going to drive you nuts. Consider that, although Mackinac has one of the best internship experiences, so also consider that. But if you know that, look, it's really about the work experience and you really want to get your hands dirty and do some serious stuff, I would really think about smaller organizations and do some research on that. Okay, telecommuting, more and more people are, bound to wherever it is that they happen to be for one reason or another. And they ask about interning remotely. And from a work perspective, a lot of the work that interns do actually can be done remotely with not that much difficulty, especially if it's research. However, I would recommend against it for an internship if you can avoid it, because the main value, as I said before, that comes from an internship is not so much the experience of the work you're going to do. It's about the connections you make and the relationships and the people you meet, and that's really the value. And you want to squeeze as much out of that as you possibly can. So if you have no other option, if you're stuck in, Topeka, Kansas or something, and there's no organization there, and you really want to get involved, look, it's better than nothing, and I would try. I would go after some organizations and say, can I do some interning work for you remotely? But again, if at all possible, I'd recommend against it. Finally, when it comes to internships, a lot of people are concerned about ideology. Look, every organization has a different mission. They stand for different things, different stances on policy. What if I don't entirely agree with them? I wouldn't be too worried about that myself. And I say this as a pretty radical, what some might say purist in terms of my ideas about liberty, but I think if you can find something that you do agree with and that is advancing liberty at an organization, and you can work on that, even if you don't agree with everything else they're doing, I would say go for it. I mean, let's say a policy shop. Let's say you love the, economic research by a particular scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, for example. But you know that you strongly disagree with some of their scholars' work on foreign policy. Do you go there? For some people, that would just be absolutely a no. If you're really passionate about foreign policy and you know it's going to drive you nuts and you're going to overhear neocons talking about things, in the office, and it's going to drive you bonkers as an intern, don't go there. Don't make yourself and that organization miserable. But if you strongly disagree, but you're really focused on your area of policy and the scholar that you want to work with, and you say, look, I can ignore that other stuff. I like what this guy's doing. I want to help make it successful. I want to get that experience. Then I think that's perfectly acceptable and something that in most cases, at least on the margin, you might have to do. I mean, every organization is different, and in the very least, they're probably not going to go after the same things with the same fervor that you wish they would. So that's something that's something you want to think about. But don't be overly pure, I guess. Don't rule things out because they're not 100% perfect, because nobody's going to be exactly you in terms of ideology. Okay, let's talk about a couple specific opportunities, and then I'm going to get into some tips for the application itself and for the internship itself, and also what do you do if you don't get an internship? What can you do of value? Okay, some specific opportunities. I mentioned state-based think tanks. Go to spn.org. I think it's /directory, and you'll see a list of, like a map of states, and you get a list of every state-based think tank. And some of these are more conservative. That's definitely true. But they are all free market, absolutely. And many of them, if not most, at least have many libertarian type people working there in the policy and economic policy in particular. And almost none of them get into social issues. So even though they may be more conservative in terms of the makeup of the staff, some of them play around with, Republican politics and stuff. In terms of what they're actually advocating, pretty much every single one of them is just free market. I think they're great organizations. State-based think tanks are a wonderful place to look for opportunities. And you could just contact people that you find on the website that look like they'd be a good contact. You can email me and ask if I know of any contacts there. I'll give you my email address at the end of this thing. But I would try that out. Say, are you taking internships? Some of them will have internship applications on their websites. But the Koch Summer Fellow Program and the Journalism Program through IHS. I'm going to plug these on the next slide for a minute because I work for IHS, and I would be missing an opportunity if I didn't plug them pretty hardcore. The Koch Internship Program, I think, ignore that spring deadline thing. I should have deleted that. That is named the Koch Internship Program, similar to the Koch Summer Fellow Program, but they're two different things. The Koch Summer Fellow Program is run entirely by IHS. It just is named Koch Summer Fellow Program because historically it used to be done by the Koch Foundation. It's funded in part by them. The Koch Internship Program is run by the Charles G. Koch Foundation, and it's slightly different. But that's something to check into as well. Cato Institute, as I mentioned, they have great internships there, and they actually do quite a bit of education on the ideas while you're an intern as well. There are other places also. I would encourage you to research and look for some other places. You can contact me as well, and I'll tell you a couple places, a couple jobs boards to look for more at the end of the slideshow. Okay, the Summer Fellow Program, let me give a quick plug for this, and I'll slap on our journalism program too. Summer Fellow Program is one of IHS's premier programs. It's a pretty high-level investment from our end, so it's very competitive. We award, there's about 82 Koch Summer Fellows, I believe, this year, and last year we had 1,300 applications. So it's very competitive. Excellent program. It's 10 weeks. It starts with a week-long opening seminar, educational seminar, similar to other IHS seminars if anyone's ever been to them. And then as an eight-week internship at a policy think tank, we place you at think tanks that match your interest, either in DC or at state-based think tanks. And throughout that 8 weeks, there are 1 or 2 lectures a week on various policy issues and libertarian topics. There are writing assignments, there's workshops on public speaking, there's workshops on media interviewing, there's resume workshops, there's group assignments, and then the final week there's a closing seminar where you're presenting a lot of the stuff that you've worked on and getting some additional career development stuff. Excellent program. I encourage all of you to apply. The application deadline is January 31st, so you only have a few weeks. Apply. I think it's excellent, and worst case, if you don't get in by applying to this, you will, if we're reading the applications and we notice, oh, this person, they're not going to get in here, but they might be great for an IHS seminar, you'll probably get an invite to a seminar. You should also apply for seminars directly as well, but definitely apply for the Summer Fellow Program. I think it's just one of the premier programs, and I don't say that only because I ran it the last 2 years. Also, we have a journalism internship program, as I mentioned, and that places you at newspapers around the country. as well as some at Reason Magazine, places like that. Our journalism interns, both broadcast and print, have gone on to some pretty amazing things. I think we have a producer at ABC, a producer for the Stossel Show. We've got somebody that was just picked up by CBS Evening News who are alumni of our journalism program. Several reporters at newspapers, investigative journalists at think tanks have gone through the program. So that's also an excellent program. Okay. Applying for an internship. This is for any internship, not just the IHS internships. Apply early. You would be surprised, even though people reading applications would like to treat everyone equally, when you get to the end, the day before, the minute before the application closes, that's when like 80% of the applications flood in, and it's really hard to read through that last batch, and frankly, they're just not going to get as much attention and time. They're not going to be paid as close attention to. It's going to be more of a rush. So if you are an early applicant, you're going to get more attention paid to your application just because there's more time on the hands of the person who's reading it. So get in early if at all possible. Get help on your resume. I mean, all of your universities have career centers. Now, granted, career centers vary dramatically in what they tell you to do on a resume. I've seen some of the ugliest resumes in the world come out of what some career center told somebody to do. But at least get help from a couple people that you think have experience, particularly if you know anyone who hires people on a regular basis. Ask them what they look for. Your resume it's not your life. You don't want everything on there. If I see a resume that is longer than one page from a college student, I flip out. I usually throw it away. I don't want to look at it. I'm certainly not going to look at the second page. It's too much. It's just too much stuff. It should fit on one page. It should be neat and clean. There should be good spacing. If you're really curious what, at least in my opinion, and everybody has a different opinion, a good resume looks like, you can email me and I will send you an example. I should have put one here in the slideshow. But anyway, get help. Just make your resume clean. Make it look professional. People who are from particularly like European countries will often do a CV instead, which is longer. If you're applying for something that's academic-based, that's fine. But if you're applying for an internship at one of these organizations, go American style and do a one-page resume. It's a lot easier for the person, and they're going to want to look at it. Okay, proofread your materials. That seems really, really basic, but you know what? You'd be amazed how many people don't. And you know, the autocorrect, you'd be amazed how many people apply for IHS positions and they say, I would really like to work at his, because autocorrect doesn't like IHS. They turn it into his. Little stuff like that. It matters. It shows an attention to detail. It shows that you respect the place where you're applying. Okay, let me see here. Oh, one thing I was going to say on resumes too before I move down. If you have had jobs that don't relate to liberty or the liberty movement, that is absolutely fine. It's actually, I actually think it's great sometimes to see, you know, someone was a waiter or something like that, worked at a grocery store. One, I like seeing that they haven't just sat around and studied all of their life. They've actually worked and, you know, worked in some field where they had to please grumpy customers. That kind of shows something about somebody's work ethic and character. But two, it's better than not putting anything or just stacking it up with like band and all these things that you did for school, because then it just, I don't know, personally at least, it makes me wonder, have you ever gotten outside of your bubble at school? Have you ever done anything else? So I like a little work experience even if it's not related to liberty. If it is, if you've had previous internships or something, great, all the better. Okay, don't ask questions if you can avoid it. What do I mean here? Obviously, if the application isn't working right or if it's very fuzzy and you're worried about it, fine, ask a question the way that you're told to on the website, but definitely first, wherever you're applying, read the FAQ on the website, read all that stuff. I can tell you when I was doing the Summer Fellow Program last year, having 1,300 applicants, getting bombarded with questions that could have easily been answered if they had read the website, to me that's automatically, okay, this person is too lazy to just go find out for themselves. I'd barely have time to answer them, and they're asking me this simple question. That's a mark against you, quite frankly. The over-questioners, the high-maintenance people, people who are high maintenance to the application reviewers, very, very bad idea. Now there's two kinds of high maintenance. One is not so bad. The one that's terrible is having your mom call and ask if the application went through. Believe me, I've had this more than once. Having your mom call the place you're applying to intern is basically the kiss of death in my book, so don't do that. Don't let her do it behind your back. But constantly calling, emailing, did you get my application? Did it go through? When am I going to find out? When am I going to find out? If your question has been answered, don't ask it again. Now, there is a kind of annoying, I guess, that's not so bad and can sometimes even work if you're careful. I had one of the best summer fellows this year. He was relentless. After his application was in, he sent a follow-up email saying, I got my application. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. If you want to read more of the stuff that I write, here's a link to my blog. I don't know if I emailed him back or not. Every week or two for the next 2 months before he was informed that he got into the program, it was like, just checking in, don't want to bug you, check out my latest blog post, hope I get into the program. If not, love what you guys are doing. Now, I deleted them sometimes and didn't read them. Sometimes I read them. Sometimes I was like, really, this guy's talking to me again? But it was always very polite, and I could tell he was very persistent. He really wanted this thing, and for some reason it kind of worked on me. I don't know. But definitely don't be annoying with questions. Don't have your mom call. Okay, learn about the organization. Know what you're applying for, what their mission is. Know the name of the organization, the proper name, the name of the particular area you're applying for. When you apply at IHS for the Koch Summer Fellow Program and say, I really want an internship at the Koch Foundation, I know that's very confusing, that there's these two things named Koch something or other. One of them's at the Koch Foundation, one of them is not. But as the applicant, the burden is on you to figure out all that weird nuance, even though, it may be our fault for having strange and confusing marketing. Too bad. When you're the applicant, you've got to figure that out, because little things like that matter. When it's like this person doesn't even know what they're applying for. So learn about it. Look at the website. Read it over. Read the product that these places have put out. Look at their policy studies. See what they're up to. How do you fit there? How can you help? When you do the application, talk about how you specifically can fit into what they're doing and how you can help them. Okay. Tailor your application. If you're doing applications to a million different places and you just cut and paste or do a mail merge for the name of the organization, it shows. People can tell, and it's not fun. It's not fun to get a bulk mail application. Here's why I'm applying for insert name here, and it's some boilerplate stuff. Tailor it. Take the time. If you really care, make it fit. Okay, I'm going to move a little bit faster here. If you can't get an internship, all hope is not lost. In fact, I myself never had an internship. I know, terrible. Can't believe it. Somehow I still survived. I'm doing, I guess, moderately okay considering. Okay, what can you do if you don't get in? Make yourself a better candidate in the future. If getting an internship is still something you're interested in, if working in the Liberty Movement is still something you're interested in, make yourself a better candidate. I had one of the coolest things, well, cool because I'm incredibly vain and I love it when a Google alert pops up with my name on it, but one of the people who actually got rejected from the Koch Summer Fellow Program last year emailed me and asked, what can I do to improve my application and improve my chances, and what can I do this summer now that I'm not interning for the, now that I didn't get a fellowship. I made a point to respond to every single one of those people who genuinely asked what they could do to improve, and I would read over their application and give them very candid feedback, like, your writing is terrible. You need to work on it. I was very blunt with people, and so I gave her feedback. I gave her a list of, here's all the things I think you need to study more about this issue. Your knowledge is lacking here. Your writing could be a little more crisp. I think you can build your experience, et cetera, et cetera. She emailed back asking for more details and sharing with me some of her options for the summer. So we emailed back and forth a few times. And then she put up this great blog post about how wonderful IHS was, that they helped her even though she didn't get in, blah, blah, blah. Look, maybe it's a kiss-up thing to do, but it worked. It worked. I saw my name in that blog post, and she was praising me, and I was like, okay, that does it. She's getting in next year. I know it. I can't promise that, though, because I'm not running the program. But you get the point, right? Make yourself a better candidate. Be truly genuine. Don't be all ticked and rejected. Don't go out and Facebook post about how irritated you are at some unnamed organization for not giving you an internship. Believe me, that has happened, and those people will never get an internship with us again. That's silly. It's immature. So get excited. Say, look, I see this as an opportunity. What can I do? You can volunteer. Look for some of the organizations and causes you believe in. Say, hey, what can I do for free? Here are my skills. Can I do some research for you? Can I write something? Can I, what can I do? Can I show up to your events and help you set up chairs? That stuff matters, and it's actually kind of fun. Learn, teach yourself, become knowledgeable, read. Read the works of classical liberal philosophy, economics, read the major stuff, read the ideas that these organizations are based on, get knowledgeable, get familiar with them. That is really important to a lot of these internships and just to your personal growth and development if you want to advance liberty, to know that stuff. And a summer not interning gives you an opportunity to do that. Go to seminars, go to fee seminars, go to IHS seminars, really develop intellectually. Do what you can to come to events and connect with people. Make a trip to DC to cluster together 3 or 4 events, visits to organizations. Hey, I didn't get an internship. Can I come in? Is there a good day when I can come in and hear a speech, or if you have an event going on and I can meet you in person and tell you thank you for the opportunity? Try stuff like that. Really get connected and see what you can do. There's a lot you can do. Okay, how to succeed when you get an internship. And I'm going to be going a little bit faster. We're almost done. First, add value to your organization. Okay? Add value to your organization. You want to think about what they're trying to do, what they see as valuable, not what you see as valuable to them. Not, oh, I love this organization, but they're so terrible at marketing. I'll go in and help them with that. If that's not what they think they need to work on right now, find out where they think they need to go and help them there. Help them add value in whatever way it is. Be a hard worker. Do an excellent job with the tasks that you have. That's necessary but not sufficient. That's a necessary condition to being a good intern, but it's not a sufficient condition. So work your butt off, do great work, but also think big picture. Think about what the organization is trying to accomplish and see the small tasks that you're doing and you're accomplishing in context of that, and think about how things could be improved. Little ideas for improving things, things that you weren't asked to do that come to mind, bring those up, and socialize with colleagues and other people in the movements around the organization where you are. Talk about the ideas, talk about the organization. Take every opportunity to ask the people who are there, who have the experience and knowledge, hey, what do you think your organization is best at? What do you think is the most effective way to advance liberty? Tell me about your most fulfilling experience here. Get to know them. Ask them about themselves. Seize the opportunity. Be social. Don't just do your research and do your intern work good in your little intern cube and never do anything else. Get connected. Get involved. That's something that you really need to know, because there's, especially at a large organization, there's so many interns. You won't get noticed unless you make yourself noticeable. And I don't mean noticeable by throwing food at the window or something crazy that will get you noticed in a bad way. But how do I think of throwing food at a window? Who does that anyway? I once threw a pickle at a window at a White Castle. Anyway, it's probably still there today. I don't think they clean those windows very often. Let's move on before I say anything else ridiculous. Where to look? There's some jobs banks out there. Yay, IHS runs one of them. LibertyGuide.com. Ignore the somewhat dated motif of that website, but there's jobs but also internship opportunities get posted up there on a regular basis. Check it out on a regular basis. America's Future Foundation, same thing. These last two, you might be looking at them and saying, conservative, heritage, I don't know, I thought this was libertarian. They post all kinds of opportunities, so you're actually going to find a lot of opportunities at libertarian places on Leadership Institute and Heritage Foundation. Worth checking out, worth keeping, keeping familiar with. With that, that brings us to the end. I wanted to plug one final thing. IHS has a guide to policy careers, and it has a section about internships. It has sections about what degree should I get if I want to go into the policy type liberty advancing world. What should I do to get my start? And it kind of takes you all the way through, and it talks about the different types of careers. And it's written by all the sections. There's like 30 or 40 different authors, written by individuals who are presidents of think tanks, who are development officers, research assistants, professors, people who are in this movement writing about getting a career there. So it's a long link, I know, it's up on the slide, but if you go to libertyguide.com, I think you can get to it if you click on career resources, creating your path to a policy career. Check it out. See if there's anything in there of interest to you. Skip around to sections that look valuable. If you have questions, some of the things that I've mentioned before, I'm going to give you the Koch Summer Fellow Program email. That will go to a nice gentleman named Kurt Boheis who answers those emails. And if you put webinar in the subject, if he can't answer it, he'll pass it on to me, and we'll get you what you need. And our goal at IHS is to help you learn about the ideas of liberty, but then develop and gain skills if you want a career advancing those ideas. And so we're all about one-on-one attention. We're about giving you the resources that you need to get there. So if you have questions related to this, by all means, let us know. And with that, I will open it up to questions right now.
All right, thanks a lot, Isaac. Quick question for you from me. Will we be able to send off this slideshow to any students that are interested? Can you email that to me or to Irina?
Yes, absolutely. If I don't remember to immediately after this, just shoot me an email, and tonight or tomorrow morning I'll give it to you, and you guys can send it off to interested students.
Awesome. Thank you very much. First question comes from Aaron Ferreras. For the IHS Summer Fellowship major public policy essay, is it better to choose an American issue?
You know, it's not. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter the country where the issue is that you're focusing on. I think what matters is writing skills. That's something I don't think I mentioned before. I did. I talked about proofreading, but your writing should be crisp and clean and logical. You know, you can get away with a little bit of folksiness sometimes, but it should be engaging immediately, and it should be, like I said, logical. The arguments you're making you need to follow. So I think that's most important. So when it comes to the IHS Summer Fellowship, I would say just the crisp clearness of the writing, the logic of the arguments themselves, and then finally, what you're advocating would actually advance liberty, because IHS is very interested in that. So if you're advocating some sort of socialist measure, that's probably not a good thing, which I'm sure you're not anyway. So, but no, international is absolutely fine.
The next question comes from Zach Slayback. He's a high school student and was curious if you had any tips for helping him when he's competing with college students for internships. He recently applied with the Commonwealth Foundation.
Oh, that's a tough one. I know some high school students who have gotten internships, even pretty young in their high school careers, if you put it that way. And what's interesting is they are often some of the best interns I've known. I think it's because it's so rare, and the bar is higher for them, just because the assumption is that they're not going to have as much knowledge and experience and ability to research and stuff, which is often true. So, look, personally, I don't. At IHS, we don't have any opportunity for high school students, but I know some places do. Commonwealth, I would not be at all surprised. I would just demonstrate your intellectual ability, what you're able to grasp, the knowledge you have of the ideas of liberty, the things you're passionate about, and your writing. But then I would also explicitly address it. Come right out if there's a place to say it in a cover letter, an email, and an application to say, look, I completely understand I'm a high school student. I understand that the bar is higher for me. I understand that I'm competing against college students, graduate students. That's a challenge I look forward to, and I think I can take it on. If you give me a chance, I think you'll be proud. And the benefit of me being a high school student, if I'm good, I can come back for years. I think you should just take it head on. Take it on and acknowledge it and say that you're willing to work all the harder because of it.
Okay. The next question is from Clint Townsend. Are AFF and IHS offering any internships outside of the Summer Fellow Program in journalism?
Yes, thank you, Clint. You're doing my job for me. I should have mentioned that before. By the way, good to hear from you, Clint. AFF, I'm not sure. To be honest, I have not kept up. I know they've had a lot of changes recently, so I would check on their website. I would not be at all surprised, though. Even if they don't advertise it, you might contact someone there and say, hey, I want to intern for AFF. What can I do? And there probably will be an opportunity. IHS, absolutely. You can also intern at IHS. You're not treated as nicely when you intern at IHS as when you're a Koch Summer Fellow. No, I don't mean people are rude to you. I mean, when you're a Summer Fellow, housing is provided, some other nice benefits that Clint could tell you all about. But when you intern at IHS, it's more helping to execute our program. So you will get to go to a couple summer seminars, which is awesome. It's a great place to intern. Plus, you get to see me. So if you want to do that, look at the ihs.org. There is a section on there about internships. Again, you can email me if you have questions as well. But yes, we definitely have internships there. And they're just competitive. There's not as many applicants. It's not 80 some out of 1,300 like it is for the Summer Fellow Program. So you can also apply for both, which is always a good idea. Hedge your bets.
All right, thank you. The next one comes from Lode Cossier. He says the Koch Fellowship Program asks for 2 references, one academic and one professional, and he's a Belgium student whose professors are completely unknown, but he does have some connections with people in the American libertarian movement. Would he be better off picking from his professors or picking from more well-known libertarians here in the States?
Well, Lode, I know that you are well connected and that you know people who are from my brief interactions with you. I would go with whoever is the most likely to be known by the people who are reading the application. So when it says, one professor, one, professional, go with any professor that knows you well enough to give you a recommendation who you think will be well known. So if you're buddies with George Selgin or, some other libertarian professor that you think is fairly well known and respected, with a place like IHS, for example, put that person. I think that's always your best bet.
The next question is from Adrian Guillory. He's a recent chemistry graduate. Are there any libertarian organizations that delve into environmental policy?
Yes, absolutely, Adrian, and nice to meet you. There are a couple places, PERC, Property and Environmental Rights Council. I think it's Council. I think that's what the C stands for. Out in Montana, there's also FREE, Foundation for something environment. You can email me if you don't find some of these. And then there are other places. The Institute for Energy Research does sort of energy/environment stuff in DC. There, Cato has some environmental stuff. A lot of the state think tanks do some environmental stuff. It's not solely what they're dedicated to, but in terms of the job market, sometimes people with expertise in the hard sciences, it's going to be a little harder to get a job in this liberty movement. But in terms of internships, I actually think it can give you an edge sometimes to say, hey, I'm a chemistry student. I really know my science. Here's some great paper I wrote on, I don't know, something about molecules or some other thing that people like me don't understand. And, I really want to apply this to these policy issues. I'll bring a lot of this expertise. That's actually kind of desirable in an intern. Like if they can bring in some interesting expertise that's applicable to a policy issue like that, I think that's pretty cool. So yes, there are places. Look at the PERC and look at FREE, IER, Institute for Energy Research, and you can email me if you're having trouble finding them, and I'll see if I can come up with any others as well.
The next question is from Rhett Foreman. It says, I have a strong philosophy and political theory background, but not a very strong economics background. Do you have any tips on how to present my strengths and handle my weaknesses when applying?
Absolutely. First tip, start reading some economics. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of great lectures on FEE that you can listen to or watch on Mises.org. A lot of great books. So do give yourself a self-education first. But second, acknowledge that. It's always good to be upfront and honest and say, look, here's my background, political theory, philosophy, economics. I'm not as well versed, but I've taken it upon myself to start reading, Mises, to get myself acquainted. That's something I want to learn more about, and I'm taking active steps to do that. I think just getting that out there is the best way to head it off. You don't have to be an expert in any of these things, and an undergrad who says that they are, most application readers are going to be skeptical anyway. So if you can come out and say, I know that, I'm aware of it, but more importantly, I'm taking action of my own initiative to remedy that. People who show a lot of initiative, people who are a major in philosophy or sociology, but who have self-educated in economics, for example, that's really impressive. So go ahead and do that and say that that's what you're doing.
All right, next one's from Amanda Ochtman, who is an undergraduate in Alberta, Canada. Do you have any advice for Canadian students seeking internships in the U.S.?
Oh, you crazy Canucks. Nice to meet you, Amanda. I do love Canadians. We always have a couple good Canadians in the Summer Fellow Program. A unique advice to Canadians, not in particular. I guess sometimes there is a sort of cultural difference, what it means to be a libertarian or a classical liberal or even like a conservative limited government person in Canada is somewhat different from what it means in the U.S. So for example, a lot of people who say I'm a libertarian in Canada are more on the conservative side. And so there's sometimes questions among the application reader what that means. So I would make really clear what it is that you stand for, what you believe in, what your values are, and not assume that using words that, like libertarian are going to be as explanatory as maybe they would be in America, because I have noticed there's a bit of a cultural difference there. Also, if there are any issues with like visas, for example, if you need a certain type of visa, or if you've had any trouble with that type of thing, honestly, what I would do, this might sound deceitful, but it's not. Don't mention anything like that. Just apply, and if you're a good candidate that they really want, then they'll get you, and then they'll find out, oh, I got to deal with some, visa, State Department thing. They'll want to go through the hoops to make it happen. But if initially, before they know you and before they're sold on you, they're like, oh, and this person's an international student, so there are additional hurdles, I don't know, it may dissuade them a little bit. I mean, some applications will ask for that type of stuff and obviously be forthright, but I can't think of anything else in particular.
Okay. Next question is from Alex Cartwright. Do you know about any opportunities to intern for Liberty abroad?
Oh, that's a great question. There are some, like I know a few in London, Institute for Economic Affairs. I believe they have some opportunities. What I would do is go to the Atlas Foundation, and they, for one, they have a directory similar to the State Policy Network, but this one is around the world, of free market and libertarian organizations. Check out their directory. Check out some of the organizations. If there's a place in a country you're interested in, a lot of these ones in other countries are pretty small shops, and if you cold call them and you're impressive, a lot of them would probably love to have you. And I don't know about the resources to pay you, but check into that. Contact Atlas as well and say, do you know of any opportunities? The Fund for American Studies, TFAS, TFAS, Fund for American Studies, I believe they have some opportunities overseas. I'm not positive on that, but I'm pretty sure they do. Otherwise, I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything right now. I think Atlas is probably the place to start looking.
Okay. Next question comes from Michael. It says, I'm interested in gaining experience in both journalism/writing as well as marketing communications. Would it create a bad impression on an application if I did not choose one of these career paths and expressed interest in both? That is, would it make me appear indecisive?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. It can, but it doesn't have to. So, Michael, I would think of it as, again, being honest and upfront. Look, I don't expect a student to know what they want to do with the rest of their life. I don't even know what I want to do with the rest of my life, right? So that'd be a little bit, presumptuous for me to assume that. And someone who's like, I've known from age 10 that I want to do X is actually a little bit frightening to me sometimes. Not always, but so it's okay to not know for sure, but I think it's the way you frame it. So if you're like, I'm really passionate about marketing, I'm really passionate about journalism, I'm really passionate about policy, I'm like, okay, this person is just trying to sell me, or they're just goofy, they're passionate about everything, they're passionate about Legos, I don't know what's going on here. So if you're like, look, I know the general interests and passions I have. I know I'm generally interested in communicating ideas to a certain type of public, and that is really fulfilling for me. I don't know enough about the industry to know which form that might take. It might be journalism for the following reasons. It might be marketing for the following reasons. That's why I'm actively trying to get experience to help me discover that. Either way, I'm interested in advancing liberty. So I think you start by framing up your generally applicable interests. What's the underlying thing that makes you interested in both of those specific areas, and then talk about the pros in those areas and how you're trying to figure that out. And I think that's actually very attractive on an application when someone has it narrowed down like that, because it shows that they're doing this in a purposeful way and they're trying to discover it. I've had people say, I think I want to go into academia. I'm pretty sure I want to be a professor. But I have this little thing in the back of my mind saying I might want to do policy. So this summer, I want to give it a go all the way and see if policy is really for me. And I like those people. And a lot of them get into the program, Summer Fellow Program, and learn that policy is not for them. And I consider that a success because I helped them discover that. We still here? We still there, Peter?
Oh, sorry about that. having a few technical difficulties.
No, not a problem.
We've got 4 questions left. The next one is from Aaron White. Is it bad to let it known that you're an anarchist, anarcho-capitalist, agorist, etc.?
It depends. If you start using words like agorist or strange symbols with like an A and a circle around it or something in your application, that's probably a turnoff. Not because necessarily of your beliefs. I'm very radical myself. But yet if I see that in an application, I'm a little bit turned off because it usually is a signal that you're dogmatic and you're not a person that's easy to get along with. And if you come to an office, a workplace where other people are less radical than you, you might be a jerk. And you don't want to send that impression. So what I would do, you don't want to sell out and pretend you're something you're not and be like, oh, well, I'm okay with government doing these things. If you're really not okay with that, don't say it. But what you can do is just talk about the positive aspects, what you like about liberty, what you think is the problem with government, and that your philosophy is anything that can be done peacefully without government should be. You value that. You think that the most important areas to get government out of first are X, Y, and Z. You don't necessarily have to say anything less than no government is 100% immoral, and I'm really angry about it. Rah, 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 rah. That's not going to send a good signal. So I think you don't have to hide it. And you can certainly say, I've become, let's say the more I become knowledgeable about libertarian ideas, I become more radical to the point where I believe that, government in general is whatever, immoral, it's a problem, it's ineffective entirely. However, I recognize that libertarians don't all hold that same position. I didn't used to myself, and I understand that there's a broader movement that I'm working within. I think at least acknowledging, if you are going to talk about being an anarchist, acknowledge the type of anarchist you are, that on a personal level you're not going to be pissing people off all the time, if that makes sense. So you got to kind of play it smart there. Be diplomatic. You don't have to be weaselly, but don't try to throw it out there like, I'm an anarchist. There, what do you think of that?
All right, thanks, Isaac.
Peter.
Isaac and I have a unique past where I was the rah anarchist in a program we were in recently.
I
Yeah.
won't say anything else. Next question.
The next question is from Brett. I'm a first-year law student, and I'm wondering if you have any advice for pursuing an internship in an organization like IJ or a similar organization. Do any of the Koch Summer Fellowships focus on legal issues?
Yes, absolutely. IJ is such an awesome place. Definitely apply for an internship directly with IJ. Also, look at IJ, some of their state-based shops, and also look at some of the state-based think tanks. I know that Goldwater in Arizona, Buckeye in Ohio, Texas Policy Center in Texas, Mackinac Center in Michigan, at least those. I think Washington's or Evergreen Freedom Foundation in Washington all have state-based versions of IJ essentially. So apply at those as well. Excellent place. The Koch Summer Fellow Program, yes, we do. We usually always place people at IJ, a handful of them. We do always have a handful of law students. I can tell you, though, historically, a huge number of people who want to get into KSFP and who are good applicants are either going to law school or interested in law school, and the vast, vast majority of them end up working in a corporate law job where they hate their life. And just being frank, and our limited resources, we're about investing in people who are very likely to have careers advancing liberty. And while filing through merger and acquisition paperwork may be, whatever, your bag, IHS is interested in people who really want to be doing liberty advancing work. Now, everybody will tell you, I'm going to law school because I want to work at IJ. But only like 3 people in the world can actually do that. It's incredibly competitive. So the majority of people who go to law school come out with $200,000 in debt and end up taking a job doing something that's not related to liberty. I don't want to hold that against you or, say you're a bad person for going to law school, but the bar is going to be higher for you just because we have not had good results historically with law school students. They're good interns, but down the road they don't end up going into those careers that IHS is hoping to support. So the bar is going to be a little bit higher. You need to really demonstrate that you're not just going to be a lawyer, oh, and by the way, you want this internship, but that you really want a career advancing liberty, and that's going to be key.
Okay, next question is from Stephen. It says, I go to a liberal arts school, and my professors do not encourage liberty or limited government in any way. How do I get academic references to speak on my behalf?
Well, it's okay if your academic references are not libertarian. That's absolutely okay. The key is, can you get any of them who are open-minded enough? If you're like, look, I really want to do this internship, yeah, whatever, it's crazy libertarian stuff, but it's what I'm interested in, it's good for me professionally. Could you be a reference and at least talk about my character, my work ethic, if need be? That's absolutely okay. In fact, sometimes it can be kind of a bonus if it's like, hey, look, I'm a professor, I think this kid's a libertarian nut job, I've been trying to make him a socialist and he won't listen, but he's a good kid and he's a hard worker. That's actually not a problem at all. So go with those if you can. If not, it's okay if, like some applications will say, ask for a professor. If you just are honest, you really can't get a professor who will give you one, say, all my professors are socialists and they hate me because I'm reading, Human Action. So instead I'm going to give you this other person. That's a possible option as well. But try to get a professor, even if they're a socialist.
Okay. One more from Clint here, and we actually have 2 more questions. We had another one sneak in. Is there anywhere outside of programs like KIP and the Summer Fellow Program where I can find funding for non-paid internships?
That is a tough question. Not that I know of right now. There may be some small ones that pop up here and there, but that's something to keep an eye out for. And if I think of anything else, I'll let you know. Also, find some rich people who like liberty and say, I want to intern at this place, can you give me a couple $1,000? You never know.
Okay, final question. Is there any way as an undergrad to get experience or exposure to academia if you're looking into grad school? That's from Kavita.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a tough one. IHS has kind of been playing around with this idea of doing some sort of like academic internship for undergrads to intern with academics to kind of get that experience if you're looking at academia. But there's not really much in that way currently. What I would recommend is, well, contact IHS and see if one of our mentors can help you in terms of what can you be doing to look more attractive to grad schools, what type of grad schools should you be looking at, etc., the basic advice. We also have a guide called Scaling the Ivory Tower, which is all about getting into academia and how to do that and do that for liberty. But then if there are particular scholars that you really like and you would love to work with or work for, you could always try contacting them directly and saying, I want to do research for you this summer. I'll do it for free. I'm really hardworking, etc. Can I come and do that? Hey, that's something that's always worth a shot. But to my knowledge, there's not too many opportunities in terms of internships for people going into academia.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Isaac. Thank you to all of our participants this evening. I hope you all can continue coming back to our webinars in the future. Our next webinar is next Monday, January 17th. Stefan Molyneux, a libertarian philosopher from Canada, will be delivering his talk on proving libertarian morality. Please visit our website, studentsforliberty.org, to register for that. And you're soon going to receive a follow-up email where we're going to have some detailed information about internships in the movement, as well as a survey to evaluate our performance. Please take a couple minutes and fill it out so that we continue to improve these throughout the year. And with that, we're all wrapped up. Unless you have some final words, Isaac, I think it's time to go watch some football.
All right, thanks, guys. Let's go watch some football and let's go kick some butt for liberty.
Thanks, Isaac.